After college back in 2015, I worked at a very popular juice shop for about 5 months so that I could pay for my Europe trip. And at this shop, I sold literally hundreds of 1 to 7 day juice cleanses. And I was excited to start working there because I really believed that these were doing something great. But then after selling a lot of juice cleanses and doing them myself, I literally haven't touched one juice cleanse in the last decade. So today I want to share the 5 reasons why I think and have seen why juice cleanses could do more harm than good. Let's dive into it. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition human performance. On my channel, I share the science-backed and delicious information to help you achieve your weight loss and wellness dreams. So if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Today's video is also sponsored by LMNT, but more on them in a bit. Okay, first I want to talk about why I thought they worked. Just a bit of justification for my 22-year-old self. Now just envision going back to 2015, even in LA, it's not like there was necessarily a lot of super healthy stuff available, or at least compared to now where there's so many healthy options available. And compared to what a lot of us were used to growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, having something like fresh squeezed juices was revolutionary, especially when we were used to things like Gushers and Lunchables. Then these juice cleanses come along and we see all these juices that are packed with so many veggies. It'd be like 12 things of kale and a whole cucumber and 1 lemon, maybe some superfood sprinkled in there. It just felt like you were really doing something healthy for yourself when you were doing these juice cleanses. And there was a lot of talk about juice cleanses at the time too, or at least if you were really paying attention in the nutrition field. There are documentaries like Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, which I definitely watched. It would follow people who would make these revolutionary changes where they would do these extended juice cleanses and completely change their health. Like one that really sticks out in my mind was there's this truck driver, and I believe he had diabetes, and he decided to do the juice cleanse, and he ended up, I think, curing or reversing his diabetes. Don't quote me on that, but I remember it was like a huge life change for him. And in theory, these juices are nutrient packed. It takes all the nutritious parts of the fruits and vegetables, the vitamins, the minerals, and just slams them into this one little juice bottle. And it made it a lot easier to eat your greens. All of that sounded so great. However, from what I saw, the problem is that it just didn't work. At least not in the way that we thought, and definitely not for most people. But before we get into that, I want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, LMNT. LMNT is an amazing electrolyte company that was specifically created with intermittent fasting, low carb eating, and athletes in mind. It actually contains the sodium, magnesium, and potassium to help balance electrolyte levels, all without having any sugar. Now, I've been using LMNT for like 4 or 5 years now. I love it. It makes me feel so much more hydrated, especially now as a mom who's been breastfeeding for like 2 years straight, actually longer than that now. I drink a lot of water, so properly balancing out my water with electrolytes has been so important for me for keeping my energy levels high and just feeling my best. And LMNT makes it really easy for me to remember to get my electrolytes in because it actually tastes great. My all-time favorite flavor is their grapefruit salt, but they also come in other delicious flavors too, like their raspberry, orange, and citrus. And you can get a free 8-count sample pack of LMNT's most popular drink mix flavors with any purchase at drinkelement.com/autumn. Find your favorite LMNT flavor or share it with a friend. It is only available through my link, so make sure to check out drinklmnt.com/autumn. The link is also in the description down below. Okay, so there are 5 main reasons why juice cleanses just didn't really work for most people. And this is what I saw after selling literally hundreds of them. The first issue is that people used it as a quick fix. The most common time that people would come in and buy juice cleanses would be Monday morning. Usually people were hungover, they weren't feeling good, or they're coming back from vacation and they wanted to do something for just like a quick reset. They thought it would help get them lean fast. They thought it would help to flush out the toxins. It was pretty much always as a way to rebound from some not so great habits, which this inevitably led to a lot of yo-yo dieting. I saw a lot of people coming in pretty consistently who were doing juice cleanses like once a month or so. The problem with the juice cleanses is that they would go from these 2 extremes. They would go from having like heavy drinking or a lot of like bad habits on the weekend to then doing these like 3 to 5 day juice cleanses to try and recoup, which is obviously not sustainable. It was essentially a form of yo-yo dieting. And so they weren't seeing consistent results and they weren't consistently feeling great. Even those who might have seen initially great results eventually stopped seeing good results, which is due to another reason I'm going to get into in just a second. But the second reason that they really just didn't work very well is that it's kind of hard on your blood sugar. Every time I did one of these cleanses, I felt awful. It would spike my anxiety. I always felt so insatiably hungry, which made me so crazy moody. And I would also get pretty nauseous. All of these classic signs of unstable blood sugar levels, which makes sense because when you're doing these juice cleanses, it's pretty much just pure carbs that are being absorbed really quickly into the body. And the faster that those carbs are broken down and absorbed, the faster it can spike our blood sugar. And then the faster that we get a blood sugar crash. When we get the blood sugar crash is when we feel bad. It's not a good state to be in a low blood sugar state. Your body goes into panic mode. It tries to quickly bring it up, which is why it's trying to get you to eat something and get you to feel really hungry. That crash can also lead to issues like anxiety for some people, like it did for me, or just generally mood swings. And because juices are like the fastest, easiest way to get carbohydrates and sugars into your body because it's juice, so you're not chewing, you also don't really have to digest because it's in liquid form. For some people, it can really lead to that big spike and crash, especially because some of these juices that are used during the cleanses use fruit juices like apple juice or pear or pineapple. I've even seen quite a bit that will use agave, which is really high in fructose, and high fructose levels can be pretty hard on the liver. Ironically, most people would find it so much easier and feel so much less hungry if they just did like a 24-hour fast versus if they did a juice cleanse. Not saying everyone should, but just to show how much of a contrast that is, because fasting causes the body to specifically lower insulin levels and turn on fat burning. When we turn on fat burning, that's more of a sustainable energy source. We don't get that elevated hunger. We don't get the blood sugar crashes. So most people generally feel better when they're fasted versus when they're doing something like a juice cleanse, eating or drinking every couple of hours, which is what you're doing when you're doing these juice cleanses. You're usually having a juice every 2 to 3 hours. Okay, the third issue is that it lacks fiber. Now, fiber is needed for a phase 3 liver detox. Our liver goes through 3 phases of breaking down toxins. The first and second phase actually happens in the liver where it's breaking down those toxins. Then that third phase actually gets rid of the toxins. During that third phase, the body pushes those processed toxins into the GI tract, and then it's supposed to leave the body via a bowel movement. The easiest way for this to happen is if you actually have fiber in the GI tract that can bind to those processed toxins and remove it. However, when we lack fiber, it makes it so easy for those toxins to then be reabsorbed back into the body and then wreak more havoc. And juices just lack that fiber component. Fiber is also needed to feed your gut bacteria, which is so important for gut health, also for your immune system, and it's used to help stabilize blood sugar levels. So the fact that juice cleanses lack fiber is a pretty big deal. The fourth issue is that it lacks the nutrients you need for an entire day. Now, playing devil's advocate, if you're to just do like a 1-day juice cleanse, this wouldn't be a huge deal, especially if you weren't doing it all the time. However, if you're to do like a 3 or a 5 or a 7-day juice cleanse, that's 3, 5, or 7 days that you're lacking a lot of essential nutrients, including amino acids from protein, vitamin B12, as well as choline. In essence, by doing a juice cleanse, you're inherently never actually optimizing for nutrient value because you're not able to get those other nutrients from your food, or from the juices rather. Which then leads me back to those who initially saw great results, like maybe that truck driver, but eventually won't continue to see the results as they do the juice cleanse for longer and longer, because you're just never actually getting all the nutrients your body needs in order to thrive. And that's because juice cleanses are inherently not balanced. They inherently do not have everything that you need for your body to actually function at its highest. And for those who've been watching my channel for a long time, you know how important protein is for sustainable fat loss, because protein helps to protect our muscles while we're losing weight, so that we're actually able to specifically target fat loss and not lose muscle. So it helps keep our metabolism from tanking while we're losing weight. But protein is also needed to help repair literally every cell in our body, like our skin, our immune system, our gut, and it's needed to help us feel full and satisfied so that we don't get hangry. And then the fifth issue is that it is super expensive. Typically 1 day of a juice cleanse, like a full juice cleanse, will cost about $90. And from what I saw, a 5-day cleanse will cost you about $450. In my opinion, you are so much better taking that same money and buying 2, 3, or even 4 weeks worth of groceries that are rich in protein, fat, and fiber, and then creating meals that'll actually make you feel satisfied, that'll actually help to support liver detoxification, that'll actually be balanced with nutrients, and that's actually sustainable and actually fuel the body properly. Now, all that said, I'm not saying that I avoid these green juices altogether. In fact, during my last pregnancy with Jack, there were a lot of times that I craved a green juice with ginger and lemon. I don't know why, it just sounded so good. And there were numerous times that I would get that. And it did feel great because I was pairing it with other food. But I just don't think I'll ever do a straight juice cleanse again, where you're only having juices for multiple days at a time. I've done my fair share. I've seen hundreds of people do them. And I've never seen or felt results from these juice cleanses that actually felt sustainable or even really healthy for that matter. Instead, if I've had a vacation, if I feel like I need to come back from some bad eating habits, these are the things that I do instead. First is I make sure I sweat daily. Sweating is one way that we actually get rid of toxins that our body process, just like how we get rid of toxins via a bowel movement. Which, speaking of, the second is that I will move daily, especially going on walks or exercising, so that I can support phase 3 liver detox. The third is that I will eat foods that help to support my liver while it's naturally going through these these detox pathways. This includes things like turmeric and ginger and cruciferous vegetables and Brazil nuts. The fourth is that I will remove all processed grains and added sugars, because those are the foods that will actually cause my liver to have to work harder rather than make it easier for it to process old toxins. And then the fifth, probably most important thing, is that I go back to focusing on my protein, fat, and fiber-rich meals without having added sugar. This helps to stabilize my blood sugar levels, helps to make it so I'm more likely to choose foods that actually support my goals and make me feel great. In essence, I focus on the science-backed tools that consistently prove to work. And I always feel better. Literally always. In fact, if you want to check out what I eat when I'm not having any added sugar, you can find that with this video next. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.